flight attendants of Reddit. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen someone doing during a flight? Masturbate. Guy was about 16. First class cabin. He didn't move for about 9 hours on the flight. We were near landing, so I wanted to check up on him. I peek over the top of the cabin and saw the guy going to town. Frozen, didn't know what to do. Wait, are you or are you not allowed to masturbate in first class? Sounds like a perk to pay for. A couple had a fight, and then the guy got up to go to the bathroom and she followed fighting, but someone told me they were having sex, though I could hear them screaming and fighting. Then my other flight attendant friend showed me this video on YouTube where someone does it. These PPL were imitating them. PS. We didn't disturb them. Nevertheless, it ended quick. A woman thought she had to put her lap baby in the overhead compartment. Luckily she was stopped in time. Not my story, my flight attendant friend. That's insane. I was recently on a plane and the landing was rough, so a couple of the overhead compartments ended up opening. Would have been something else to see a child fly out. Not a flight attendant, but I often take plane trips. One year, around Christmas time, a Middle Eastern man was on the plane. Another man on the plane accused him of being a terrorist because he looked like one. The man started shouting in Arabic and the two had a fist fight on the plane. Placed his feces inside the overhead compartment and it fell onto a woman's shoulder. Shaving. Good God, the lavatory was just behind you. It was extremely windy and the plane was shaking violently while we were landing. We were 30 seconds away approx from touching the ground. This young girl from the back decided this was the perfect moment to take a leak and walked, not to the nearer toilet on the back, but halfway through the cabin on her way to the front toilet, around 20 rows away from her seat. We started shouting from our seats, sit down, anywhere. There was no time to call the captain and tell him to delay the landing. Instead of taking the closest seat available, she walked all the way back to hers and sat down just when we were touching the ground. Some people really want to die. Also, adults suck at opening toilet doors, but kids know how to operate the hidden lock we use to lock and unlock the restrooms from the outside. How old was this girl? Looked around 20. Girl, mid-20s, walks to the back mid to key after go to the lav, and when she's told to sit back down, says she's gotta go. Squats outside the lavatory door and pees. Since we are still very much climbing, her pee runs across the floor onto the other fast feet. When I talk to her to see if she's drunk or sick, do we need to turn the plane around / how serious is this? She asks, does this happen to people a lot? Literally no, like what? Then she didn't want to take gravel or any meds. We had to help her nausea because she wanted to drink on the flight, which I actually accidentally laughed in her face and said, you're not drinking. Turn to get her water, turn back and she's gone. She's gone back to her seat, but she hadn't pulled down her pants to go pee, so she was sitting in her pee pants for the next 6 hours. I had a passenger who came back multiple times to the galley to chat. Nothing new, of course. People want to stretch or stave off some boredom. The thing was, the stuff this guy starting talking about weirded me out. He once was in charge of holding the nuclear codes for the US military. His family owned Wyoming and sold it to the government. He hadn't been in the US for 16 years because the CIA was after him, but he was returning because his father had died, but he had to be careful because his brother was out to get him. So much more, but I wasn't writing it down. It was just weird, and after a while, a bit unnerving. The guy was seriously intense. A mushroom cloud of vomit. Not an FA, but a former aviation journalist, so I used to fly a lot. We were flying over the Atlantic with Air India and the plane hit a major air pocket, dropping rapidly. The drinks trolley actually rose a couple of inches off the floor. There was a scream from the toilet, but around 3 seat rows in front of me, I saw this cloud of vomit rise up above the headrests for a few seconds, before splashing down as we leveled off. Moral of the story is keep your seatbelt on, and know where the sick bag is. I was on a flight from Amsterdam. It's a really long taxi to the runway, so I was sitting at the back, after securing the cabin. Sudden this woman jumps out of her seat and runs to the back door. I asked her if she was okay, and she said she didn't feel well and needed to get off the plane. I asked her to explain what was wrong, like if she had a headache or a stomachache or something, and she said she didn't know. She was acting so strange and started to fake cry. She kicked the door and tried to open it twice. She didn't believe the plane was moving, so she couldn't get straight off. We tried to talk her down and get her to go back to her seat. Even her friend was trying to talk sense into her. We had to turn the plane around and go back to the terminal to let her off. We told her sit down while the plane was going back to the terminal, but she didn't want to leave the door, so I had to block her from the door. She made some random phone call and covered her mouth while talking. It was all odd. Obligatory not me, but my aunt used to be a flight attendant for Delta in the late 90s. She had Val Kilmer in first class on a flight once. During the trip, he proceeded to take off his shoes and socks, then pulled out a pair of nail clippers and clipped his toenails mid-flight. It's always been her go-to for the weirdest thing she saw in the air.